Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my epic rant on the 2011 film, if you can even call it that, because I think this barely qualifies as a film, let alone a motion picture, called The Time Machine That I Found at a Yard Sale. Honestly, the more realistic title should be The Time Machine That I Found in the fucking dumpster, because that's where this film belongs. Because this film is trash. This is a terrible movie. And it's not only one of the most incompetent and poorly made films that I've ever seen, it's easily one of the worst. Now, before I get around to sharing more of my thoughts on this film, I would like to give a special shout out to Slayer for requesting this review. The Time Machine That I Found at a Yard Sale is directed by some guy named Stephen A. Sandt. And thankfully, he directed this one movie and never directed another film again. He did a short film before this, and then I think he did another short film after this called Super Monk, Monk Girl 2 that never came out, at least not to the public. And it's one of those rare instances where an incredibly terrible filmmaker does not decide to continue on making films after their first failed outing. In one way, I can give him some props for that. You know, he had the humility to be like, yeah, I'm not good enough. I'm not good at this. And then just didn't really direct anything again. I'll give him some slight props for that, but that's all I can do. Because the direction for this film is a total disaster. It is so haphazardly put together. The framing is so static, it might as well be frozen in place. The camera work is just beyond amateur. I've seen student films for college classes that uh, had more effort and were more impressive when it comes to their visuals or the camera work. It's another one of those bad movies where the director just puts a camera on a tripod, puts some actors in front of it or in front of a green screen, and that's what they call directing. There's no style, there's no flair, there's no dynamic to it. It's as flat as a fucking board, and it's boring to look at, and it does the film zero favors. It's a big part of why this film sucks so much, because the direction is just so flat and uninspired. And not only that, the direction is also incompetent, because there's a lot of moments where you could use a tracking shot, you could use a pan, you could use a wide shot or a zoom, but there's none of that. It's just one singular static frozen shot that is just repeated over and over again throughout the entire fucking movie. The direction is a total disgrace, but somehow the screenplay is even worse. And it's by the same guy. Now, from what I read, the intent was to make this like a homage or a tribute or a parody or a satire of old 50s B movie sci fi films. Well, those films have something called charm. Those films are still entertaining and kind of fun to watch despite how bad they are. This is none of those things. The entire plot is incredibly boring. There's nothing of interest happening for majority of the time, and if anything does happen, it's written in such a lazy, insipid, and uninspired fashion. You know you're in trouble when, from the very beginning, just from like the opening credits, you can already tell that you're in for something that's going to feature like 95% padding in terms of the runtime, and like 5% actual plot and worthwhile dialogue and worthwhile anything, because it starts out with this opening credits that just goes on for forever and a fucking day of a clock face and some Premiere Pro font default font titles that the creators of the film decided to use for the credits. And just like a lot of bad movies, the credits are stretched out. And the supposed adventure, the time traveling adventure, starts with Robert, your bland saltine cracker without the salt lead, winds up going to a yard sale, meets up with this old man, and buys a time machine from him. And the old man even tells him that it's a time machine. Even says it's made out of pure gold. And Robert's like, well, I don't have that kind of money. And then the old man's like, oh, the $17 in your wallet is fine. But, you must only use it for good. Which Robert, our hero, conveniently forgets, like a lot of things in this shitty screenplay later on. But okay, he's got a time machine now. So you're like, okay, all right, he's got a time machine. What is he going to do next? I bet you're not thinking that he's gonna ride his bike slowly through the neighborhood and then slowly go up to a random house, which I think might be his mom's house, but it's never explained. All you know is that it's not his house because a line of dialogue confirms that later because he has an apartment. What are you doing going into your mom's house or your grandmother's house after you buy a time machine? What if they were home? What were you what was your explanation gonna be? Oh yeah, I went to that yard sale and I bought a time machine. So he has a time machine and he goes to this house, and since it's supposed to be a movie about a plot about a time machine, right? You would think that he would immediately start testing it out, right? No. Instead, he decides this is the time to go to the fridge and pour himself a glass of orange juice and drink it for a minute straight. That's what you do when you buy a time machine from a garage sale, right? You go right home and get yourself a nice glass of OJ. He drinks this glass of orange juice for a minute, and it is a minute. Like there's no cuts or anything either. The director just shoots this actor drinking a glass of orange juice for a full minute. Then he starts testing it out. And you're like, okay, finally we're getting to the time travel in this time travel movie. But all you see is just a clock with the clock hand spinning forward. You don't see anything else. And instead of like going forward a day or two or multiple days or a year after he realized that he could go forward an hour or two, he just goes forward like 5 hours. So Robert, after he's discovered that the time machine works properly, he decides for some reason to go to some random street in Hollywood. I have no idea why. Maybe it's a little in joke that the writer has, or the writer and director has with his very small group of friends. But since I don't know the context, it doesn't make any sense. So he goes to some random street in Hollywood, but he has to pack for his time travel trip, which I'm like, what would you really need to pack? There's no prior experience when it comes to traveling through time. What, you got to get your little backpack, and you got to bring your granola bars, and your PB&J sandwiches, and your Gatorade, and your nappy, and your jammies, because you got to get ready for your little time travel adventure, your first time travel adventure. He goes forward into the future, and because this film has no budget and no point to it and no sense, the future is just some random point in a forest, like, what, thousands of years later or something, and it doesn't look any different. It just looks the same. And he runs into a pole that growls at him for some reason, and there's like a shitty CGI flying saucer that flies by every now and then that's supposed to be some kind of enforcer. And he runs into what honestly might as well be called a gang of grimaces, because there's a bunch of pretty heavy set women wearing nothing but purple. And he runs into this woman named Sheba, and she decides to run off with Robert, and Robert lets her come along, and they go on this adventure together. And you're thinking, okay, this is the point when it's going to get exciting. It's going to get fun, right? We're going to have more homages to these 50s B movies, or these B movie sci-fi films. We're going to have some satire of, some sci-fi tropes. And no, instead, the time travel movie then becomes a ripoff of Star Wars, because Sheba and Robert, they wind up finding a spaceship, and then they start flying it around. I don't know how Robert was able to fly an alien spacecraft from the future without any instructions or any knowledge of how it works, but that's your stupid script for you. And he flies it with Sheba, and they go on these really lame adventures. They go to this I think it's like, trying to remember exactly what other, they go to some planet, and because they heard some message on the thing on the spaceship that said, hey, you need to go here to drop off some delivery or whatever, and they drop it off. Then they continue their adventure that is just beyond mind-numbing and just monotonous. And one of the planets that they visit is the planet D. I'm like, oh yeah, as in dumb, as in you're a dumbass if you decide to watch this movie, or this writer is a dumbass, or dick, because this movie sucks dick. They go to the planet D, and then they run into the crappiest, most fake ass looking CGI dinosaur you will ever see in your life. The only thing that moves is its head, because that's the only thing that they bothered to animate, and it's not even textured properly into the scene. It is something else. Like, it is the kind of scene where you look at it and you're like, "Oh my god." That's like the biggest laugh I got out of this, is just from how bad that effect was. Also, how bad the acting was in that scene. They leave the planet Dinosaur, then they go to this water planet, and then I guess Robert and Sheba fall in love, but that's also done in the most boring way possible. They kind of smirk at each other, then they disappear. Then it cuts to a scene of Sheba combing her hair with a little smirk on her face. And I guess we're supposed to assume that they eloped, that they had sex in the waterfall planet. I have no idea, and I don't really care either way. But like, the screenwriter can't even effectively convey romance. He can't even do that properly, let alone anything involving action or intrigue. Sheba and Robert then get on their spaceship, and then they decide to help the resistance because the Empire, this is how original the script is after them, and they wind up encountering some star cruisers, and they get into the most lame ass, shitty, boring, and forgettable space battle you will ever see in your entire fucking life. And for some reason, when the star cruisers fire their weapons, it sounds like a gun blast. I'm like, why do their guns sound like just cannons? And they have spacecrafts. It's a star cruiser. You couldn't afford like some cheap laser gun effects. You had to use like a cannon that sounds like it's from the Napoleon time. Like what the fuck, man? So you have these just really piss poor, weak, woeful space battles. Then Robert and Sheba decide to take on another mission, and they bury the supplies or something they're supposed to deliver uh, from the Resistance on this like ice planet, and they landed their ship like a ways back, like I don't know, maybe like a few miles away or something, and they finished burying the supplies, and then they hear an explosion, and then they turn around, and then they're like, "Oh no, our spaceship is blown up." And I kid you not, this is actually something that is in this screenplay. In a screenplay that's called The Time Machine that I found at a yard sale, the film's protagonist, see, I can't even speak clearly because this is so unbelievably frustrating and stupid. The film's protagonist, Robert, forgets that he has a fucking time machine. Because Robert and Sheba are like, oh man, I guess we're gonna die. And they are willing to resign themselves to freezing to death until Sheba's like, hey, Robert, don't you still have a time machine in your backpack? And then Robert's like, oh yeah, I do. And then they use it to get out of the situation that they were in. Are you kidding me? Was that supposed to be a joke? Was that what it was supposed to be? It doesn't come across as a joke. It just comes across like the writer has no idea what the fuck he's writing. He has no idea what he's doing. That's what it comes across more as. Just like a scene before that where they watch a belly dancer dance for 2 minutes straight. Once again, with no cuts. And it has no bearing on the plot whatsoever. Because the belly dancer never shows up again, despite her being on the film's poster. So now that our heroes have remembered that they have a fucking time machine, they wind up getting back into their spaceship in time before it gets blown up. And then they decide to go back to Earth, go back to the regular time that Robert was at before they went on their awful adventure. And then you have this random scene where Robert decides to set up a meeting with his mom and his sister, with him and Sheba, to announce that they're gonna get married and then they're gonna go on a road trip. And they're talking about all this money that they made. They don't have to worry about money because they've made all this money doing all these space jobs. The film then decides to end with Robert and Sheba on vacation on the beach, and Robert flips a fucking coin and laughs, and then it's over. And I'm like, what in the fuck did I just watch? And can I use a time machine to go back in time and prevent myself from watching this piece of shit? I've seen some really bad movies in my time, but this is up there. This is up there with Creepshow 3. You know, and ironically enough, that film also had a crazy old man who was selling shit to people in it. When your shitty screenplay reminds people of Creepshow 3, you fucked up. So yeah, I don't really have much else to say about this screenplay, except it is bad on every level. It's bad when it comes to the plot. It's bad when it comes to the characterization. There's no reason to like Sheba or Robert. They both suck equally. There's no conflict. There's no actual antagonist, uh, other than the two leads' own stupidity. And it's not clever. It's not unique. It doesn't put anything interesting into the fray. It doesn't do anything new or particularly compelling when it comes to its take on the time travel or space adventure movies. And if this is meant to be a labor of love to old 50s, 60s B movies or sci-fi films, uh this is not it. This is a slap in the face. This is this is not something that you would ever decide to do to something that you supposedly love. This is like the equivalent of dropping trout and taking a dump on somebody's face and then being like, I did that because I love you. The film also features a abysmal cast of actors. You have Johnny James Gatyas, who plays Robert, and the man is, in a lot of ways, a I don't even know if I want to call him a thrift store Chris Pratt. He's more like the 99-cent store, the bargain bin Chris Pratt, more like Chris Schatt, because he shits all over himself in every scene that he's in when it comes to his acting in this. Just so bottom of the barrel and beyond bad line delivery. Flat, lifeless, might as well just be a fucking cardboard cutout for every scene that he's in, with somebody putting their hand over it and making a fake little mouth move and then making a funny voice. Or that actually would have more emotion. Uh, this guy acts as if Shang Tsung sucked the soul out of his asshole. Like, I don't understand how you can act in such a way that it's hard to really tell if the person is alive or not. But that's what happens here with Robert's actor Johnny Gatyas. And the same thing happens with Amy Henry, his co-star Sheba. Somehow the two of them are equally as lifeless, equally as dead in the eyes and dead in their line delivery. And there's really no reason to talk about anybody else because they don't have really much of screen time and they all suck too. There isn't a single actor or actress in this that was even average when it comes to the level of their performance. Everybody was terrible. They're either looking directly into the camera or they're just delivering the most lifeless, inauthentic, awful acting that you will honestly see in your life. Like I have seen not just school plays, college junior college plays that have better acting. I've probably seen better acting from a crazy homeless guy on the street than what I saw from anybody who tried to act in this piece of shit. And then you have other elements like the music, which, I mean, what can I really say about the music? The music is literally probably just a bunch of shit that they bought for free. They got it, some free sound samples from somewhere online and then used it, because I can't even find a composer on here. It doesn't even show a composer. It just on IMDb in the credits. It just shows sound department. And Robert Davis, who did the sound for this, uh, was a total failure, because there were numerous times where you could barely even understand what anybody was saying because the mics weren't turned up properly, or they weren't set up well, or the background music was drowning out the dialogue. And then you have the editing by Gary Smith, which was shit. It was the opposite of spectacular, a spectacular fail, because there are so many scenes that should have been cut. So many scenes that should have been trimmed down considerably, but they never were, and they were just left as is. Like scenes of Robert riding on a bicycle down a pathway for what feels like an eternity. Entire scenes of your characters just walking from one place to the next, or going to the fridge and getting out a glass, or not really a glass, getting out the container of orange juice, then getting a glass from the cabinet, then putting the glass down, then pouring the orange juice in, and then drinking the orange juice. Belly dancing for like 2 minutes straight. Like, if this had an actual competent editor, all of that would have been trimmed down considerably. But no, it's just left as is. And then I can't really say much about cinematography. Was there cinematography? It says there's a cinematographer, John Wilder, but I think it's a wild notion considering the movie barely has much directing in it, because most of it just takes place behind a green screen, and people just stand behind a green screen and just look around. But okay. And then the special effects are special, all right, by Mark Weiss. Just some untextured CGI spaceships, dinosaurs. It's just so fucking awful. And everything about this film is just terrible. It really is, on every single fucking level. This film is so bad that the lead actor, in a scene where he's supposed to be excited after flying a spaceship for the first time, can't even effectively display that particular emotion properly. He goes, Yahoo! Oh! Like, Yahoo! I! As if he, like, banged his knee on the shitty spaceship control prop during the take, and there was no way that they could do another take, so they just went with it. Like, I wouldn't even be surprised if that actually was the case. Oh, Yahoo! Ah! Oh, E! It's a fitting thing to put in this movie, because this film is pain. I watched this at 2 times the speed on YouTube, folks, because I couldn't fucking stand it anymore in regular speed, and it was still just as awful. It was still just as slow and plodding and boring and infuriatingly inept. Even at 2 times the speed, you know your film is shit when you watch it at twice the speed and it's still too slow. And it still sucks. And it's still just as bad. that is just my thoughts on the time machine that I found at a yard sale. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you later. See ya.